We're going to be in a workshop mode tonight, dealing with the issue of how you solve problems. You'll be working on some projects. I'm going to be talking about some things. Those of you who are listening to the videotape, we'd like you to work on the same kind of projects as we move along. Whenever I give a project and we stop in this group, we'd like you to stop the tape and go ahead and complete the project yourself. Problems are an interesting part of life. I have never enjoyed them. Somehow I've always had them. I have never sought them, but somehow they always seek me. Problems come up in the normal course of just walking through a day or living out a lifetime. Learning how to solve problems and deal with them is an essential part of being able to walk with God and do rightly in the world. We're going to be taking a look at some tools for problem solving, some information about problems, and then some practical tools for problem solving. I don't have a specific formula to give you. Problems are so different. I have some general guidelines I can give you, but problems are so different, so varied. People are so different and varied. There is no cookbook for solving all problems. If you wanted to find one of those, you're not going to find it here tonight. If you ever do find it, call me and let me know. I'd like to buy the book or the training seminar or whatever it is. However, there are guidelines that you can use and some tools that you can use for working through problems. We're going to stop the videotape in just a second, and I'd like to ask you to do something, just the first project. You can, on the handout that you've received, you can flip it over on the back if you'd like. I'd like you to write down as many facts about problems as you can. Characteristics, maybe your emotional reactions, just as many things about problems as you can. Just jot down, and why don't you do this in twos? Just in case you don't know enough yourself, you can use this other person's expertise. All the things you can write down about problems, say in about 3 or 4 minutes. We'll close the videotape, cut it off, and get to work. We're going to take a look at, first, just a perspective on trouble itself and how problems fit into trouble. Then we're going to take a look at some of the issues in dealing with problems. Trouble is something that nobody likes to get into. Trouble is a state or condition of distress. You can see the definition on your handout: distress, annoyance, inconvenience, or difficulty. Those are bad words. Stress, annoyance, inconvenience, and difficulty. Whenever a situation shows up that brings one of these things to you, you are in trouble. In case you didn't know it, you're now in trouble. Trouble is something none of us like. It's very surprising whenever it comes upon us usually. But it's something that is very much a part of life. A scriptural perspective on trouble, just quickly. Troubles are a normal part of life. They're not abnormal. Whenever you see movies or you watch programs on TV, the general scenario of the program runs something like this. Life is going along normally and happily. All of a sudden, trouble erupts. And then, either through the intervention of a super detective or somebody with supernatural power on Charmed, or the intervention of your neighbor next door who bumbles in at just the right moment. Something happens to resolve the trouble, and then life goes back to its normal, happy state. Trouble just sort of intrudes into our normal, happy lives that don't have trouble, and then it's very quickly dealt with. In reality, trouble is a lot more a part of the fabric of life than that. Job 5:7, that was quoted a few moments ago, says, "Yet man is born to trouble as surely as sparks fly upward." As you think about the flow of your life over the next many years, Trouble is just going to be a part of it. So whenever trouble suddenly erupts, whether it's car trouble or trouble in a relationship or trouble in something you never anticipated, that's just a part of life. Ecclesiastes 11:8 says, however many years a man may live, let him enjoy them all. But let him remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. I read that and I thought, I don't want to know this. I want to believe the movies are right. I want to believe TV's right. But in reality, looking back over my life, there have been a lot of really good times, and then there have been a lot of days of darkness. They come. Learning how to deal with them is really important. Since they're going to be intruding over and over and over again, how you handle them can make life a lot sweeter. Life's unpredictable. We don't know when troubles are going to occur. Now, we sort of know this. I mean, really all of us know that we don't control the future. But we tend to live in a fantasy in our own minds that we've got everything figured out. We know exactly where everything's going. We know how everything's going to work out. We just sort of have this general feeling about life, and then the plans we've made don't work. For us, this week, John had an asthma attack. That meant several nights up that we hadn't counted on spending up at night. But you just do that. That's a part of life. People have asthma attacks in dusty weather. We know that life's unpredictable, and yet whenever the unpredictable occurs and trouble intrudes, we sometimes go to God with statements like, why did you let this happen? Things are going so well. Well, Ecclesiastes 9:1, I reflected on all this and concluded that the righteous and the wise and what they do are in God's hands, but no man knows whether love or hate awaits him. We just don't know what's coming next. I've been in situations where I walked out of some great circumstances, walked into another one, and I walked into a hornet's nest. Had no idea this was getting ready to happen. Proverbs 27:1, do not boast about tomorrow, for you don't know what a day may bring forth. Some people brag about what they're going to do tomorrow. What we tend to more get set is our plans for tomorrow. Actually, whenever we have decided how tomorrow is going to work out, we're in a kind of boasting state. We think we know it all. As it turns out, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's good to make plans, but you have to be ready to roll with the punches. James 4:13 through 15. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we'll go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will do such and such. So you need to adopt an attitude just in general about life. We do have plans. There are things we want to do. There are directions we're going. The Lord willing. Because future just has this uncertainty to it. And whenever we decide that we have the future locked down, it gets loose. That's normal. It's not exceptional. It's not an attack from the devil. It's just a normal part of life. Things are unpredictable. Troubles turn out to be a major source of our faith development. It's through troubles that our faith in God begins to really grow. It would be wonderful if we grew in faith in nice and sunny times. But the truth is, whenever life's going well, we generally sort of take time off, go on spiritual vacation, lay back and bask in the sun. Troubles start, and we begin to have to get serious about walking with God and trusting God. Corinthians talks about this, 2 Corinthians. We don't want you to be uninformed, brothers, about the hardships we suffered in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired even of life. Indeed, in our hearts we felt the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God, who raises the dead. Trouble comes in to set our faith and our trust on the right things. Sometimes ladies begin trusting in a guy. There's a guy that's going to make the world come together for them. And it turns out it's God, not a man, who's going to make the world come together for you. Sometimes fellas trust in their jobs. They get this thing down, get their career plotted out, and it's their job that's going to make life really come together for them. Trouble intervenes, and it turns out it's not that job. It's going to be God who makes life come together. Trouble helps our faith develop. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us. Not only did he do it once, we trust in him now for the future. On him we've set our hope that he will continue to deliver us. Whenever your hope gets set on something else, you can almost count on God to revise it. Because Scripture says he's a jealous God. Trouble is one of his tools. As soon as we begin to set our hearts and our trust in something else, he will compete with it. It's a major source for our growth in character. James 1 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face various trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance." You get tested, you learn to persevere, to hang in there. Perseverance must finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. The way it goes is, trouble comes, trouble tests your faith. You go through the testing, and the testing in the middle of the heat, you have to learn how to hang in there regardless how you feel about this situation. Regardless what's going on, you have to learn to hang in. And it's out of that hanging in with God through the tough times that the good stuff of God begins to grow in your life, and you begin to mature. Romans echoes the same thing. It says, "Not only so, but we rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character, and character produces hope." As we go through trouble, it produces suffering. That's hard times for us. It's the suffering, hanging through the suffering, that establishes us as someone who's going to endure. We are going to endure. We learn perseverance out of it. Perseverance, hanging in there. It's hanging in there, learning to revise your tongue. It's hanging in there, learning to treat people differently. It's hanging in there, learning to manage your attitudes, that begins to produce things like gracious and kind speech. That begins to produce things like hope for tomorrow instead of just discouragement in the middle of the storms. These things grow out of learning to hang in there. You learn to hang in there by having to suffer. You suffer out of trouble. Again, this is not the way we don't normally go out and pay people to give us problems so we can grow spiritually. But this is the way growth occurs. Troubles are also a source of incredible eternal reward whenever we respond rightly. In the same book, Paul writes, talking about the troubles they're facing, "Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we're wasting away," he's getting older, his body's not what it used to be, "yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day." God keeps on just filling our lives with hope and direction and peace. "For our light and momentary troubles," now this is a guy who had been shipwrecked 3 times, who had been beaten again and again, who actually was left for dead after one beating, who had been imprisoned over and over again. And he says, our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, the trouble, but on what is unseen. What's seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. In the middle of the trouble, you have to remember that this stuff is coming in order to grow you, and out of that's going to come tremendous reward from God. It's God's tool. In our culture, we have learned to be whiners amid trouble. There are many other cultures in the world where trouble is more and even more a normal part of life than it is here, and people are rather stoic about things. They really bear up under trouble. We've learned to whine. "I don't know why life goes like this all the time for me. I try so hard to be so good." Well, all of us walk through trouble. There are exceptional attacks. There are exceptional hard times. To get discouraged is normal. But trouble is a tool in the hand of God. You have to learn a different perspective on it. It's a source of ministry to others. For just as the sufferings of Christ overflow into our lives, so also through Christ, our comfort overflows. Sufferings, he suffered. We suffer too. We go through hard times. His comfort comes to us in the midst of suffering. And we learn that God really can take care of us. He says if we're distressed now, we go through troubles now, we're leaders, it's so that you guys can be comforted. It's for your comfort and salvation. If we're comforted, it's for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance in the same sufferings we suffer. So it's a source of ministry to others. One of the things that Deborah and I realized after a long time is that many of the difficulties that we've walked through personally have been the source of being able to relate to people and help people walk through the same kind of difficulties. They had their own brand of it. But out of the very hard things we've walked through, God has used us to comfort people who are walking through those things now. That's true in the loss of our little girl. That's not the way you want to minister to people. But there are a lot more people who've lost children than just us, and who will. So the enemy comes to us in the middle of trouble and says, you just need to throw in the towel, forget all this. But God's very much at work amid it. We just have a very different perspective in America from what the Bible does. One of the truths about trouble is that when we've been resistant to the Lord, troubles often come to soften our hearts and make us open to God to learn His Word. Have any of you ever experienced this? You begin to get hard-hearted toward the Lord and begin to get a little bit arrogant, start goofing off, and then all of a sudden a situation arises that demands that you throw yourself back at the feet of God and ask for help. Trouble is one of His tools for drawing the hard-hearted back and keeping us from going on off the cliffs of life and really harming ourselves. I know, Lord, that your laws are righteous, the writer of Psalm 119 says, and in faithfulness you have afflicted me. That's an amazing statement. God afflicted me in faithfulness, he says. At another point he writes, and he goes on to say, may your unfailing love be my comfort according to the promise of yourself. And I'm in the middle of trouble, God, you brought trouble. And just help me to hang on to your promises and your unfailing love in the middle of this. Another point he says, before I was afflicted, I went astray. But now I obey your word. You brought these things and I got back in line. It was good for me to be afflicted so that I might learn your decrees. That's a very un-American statement. And from our perspective in this culture, it's never good for anybody to have problems. But boy, if God is God, and real life on this planet is lived in His way, then one of the kindest things on earth He can do is whenever we walk out of His ways, send trouble to bring us back in line, back onto the path where there's safety. So the trouble has a different flavor to it in the scriptures from what we tend to run into on TV and in the movies. Troubles themselves, these times of difficulty and pain and inconvenience, annoyance, etc., can come from a lot of sources. They can come from our own sin. They can come from attacks from other people. They can come from just the general vicissitudes of life, the ups and downs of life. There is a pattern of that in life. We don't know whether love or hate awaits us. We get life all figured out, and then it turns a corner we never thought about. It can come from a lot of different sources. There's a tendency to, whenever trouble erupts, to immediately assume God is mad at us, number one, and therefore He let the devil loose, number two, and so we need to sulk, number three. Actually, you have to grow up and realize this is a broken world where things just don't work out right all the time. All kinds of people through history have walked through problems, and we ourselves will walk through our share. The good news for us is our Father is at work in the middle of this stuff to do us good. We have to develop the eyes to see it and endure in trusting Him. Problems produce trouble. Whenever trouble strikes, very often what it indicates is that there's a problem here. Something's been going on that's not quite right. We get into the pain, we get into the suffering, it comes out of a problem. We want to take a look at just understanding what problems are, and again, a biblical perspective on them. A problem is any unsettled question or a difficulty that just calls for a solution or really causes you concern. You either have a question that's got to be answered, like 2 + 2 = in your math book. That's called a problem, or calculus, or you have a sociology problem if you study sociology. We have problems in books. We also have problems in life. Usually in life, they're not questions, they're situations. And those situations erupt, and they call for a solution. They cause concern. You just don't want to continue to live with this. You got to do something about it. And your heart's really concerned while this is going on. The normal feelings that accompany problems are what? You guys mentioned some a few moments ago as we were into our session off tape. What are some of the normal feelings you go through? Guilt? Frustration? Anger? Fear? Doubt? The airborne emotion, I want to bail. I'm out of here. The normal feelings that accompany a problem, you can put in 2 big categories. One of them is distressed. To be distressed is you're temporarily under just great strain, either physically or mentally. But we get really distressed. I mean, we're just hurting for the moment. Now the other is vexed. That's not a word we use a lot today. To be vexed is to be upset, agitated, and probably right on the edge of angry. But you get all upset. Maybe your stomach gets upset. You start feeling like throwing up, or your blood pressure goes out the top, or you get the acid stomach, or you have to go in the corner and stand and just breathe because you get a whole bodily response to this thing, physical and spiritually. Distress and upset, vexed. Whenever problems come, that's just normal. Normal response to a problem. How do you not just simply feel under tremendous stress or upset, but how do you respond to a problem? Try to run, maybe? Try to deal with it? Usually if it's a real problem, there are a couple of things you encounter. One is you get baffled. Being baffled is, I don't know what to do. I'm frustrated. I mean, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried something else, and none of it's worked. And I'm just frustrated. I'm not only upset, every direction I go seems to be blocked. Second one, perplexed. You get worried, uncertain about what to do. This just gnaws on you. This situation just gnaws on you, and it gnaws on you, and it gnaws on you. You don't know what's going to happen. You get anxious. You stay anxious over it. Sometimes you get to the point that you're not sure what decision to make. It just gnaws on you. Not sure exactly what to do. You can't quite get hold of what the real issues are. You can't quite think logically. You can't just sit down and say, this is a problem I should do, let's see, A, B, and C. Instead, here you are, baffled, frustrated. You've tried, and nothing's worked. And then, perplexed, your mind just can't grasp it and deal with it. You just sort of, I don't know what to do. It's hard to make decisions. So you have a statement on the paper there, on your handout, that says, if you feel, well, there's a situation here that we got to do something about, puts me under, why don't you circle strain and stress? I feel upset, so why don't you circle upset and angry? Circle worried and uncertain. Situation we got to do something about. We can't just let this go. There's got to be a decision. Puts me under strain and stress. I feel upset, maybe a little bit angry. I'm worried and uncertain about what to do. Whatever I try doesn't seem to work. I've tried this and he won't respond right. I've tried that and the boss still does so and so. I'm confused, I'm puzzled. I don't know what to do. Why don't you circle confused and puzzled? If you ever feel this, I want to congratulate you. You have just identified a problem. This is how you know you've got a problem. You're under strain and stress. You're upset, probably angry. And you're frustrated and you don't know what to do. At that point, you have identified a problem. It's problem solving that we want to talk about. How you deal with this thing that makes you anxious, angry, upset, that frustrates you, keeps you from solving the thing, leaves you confused and puzzled. How do you handle this? If the problem comes up, trouble erupts, the situation occurs, and you say, this is what we do, 1, 2, 3, that's not a problem, not really. But whenever you get confused and puzzled and angry and upset and it ain't working, you have just identified a problem. Reaction to problems, how do people handle problems? Usually one of two ways, either flight or fight. We're in a society where you have the privilege of being very mobile. You can move around a lot. Flight can be physical, it can be emotional. A person encounters a problem and maybe they didn't ignore it or deny it. If you've ever seen the old Hogan's Heroes, the guard in the prison camp, Schultz, his big line is, I see nothing, I hear nothing, I know nothing. Sometimes that's our response to problems. I just don't even want to even deal with this. I refuse to admit it exists. I'm going my own way. Sometimes we do flight in a very curious way. We get real angry and upset and then we stomp out of the room. That's actually getting out of there. That's a very elegant way to run off and hide. People think you're being real aggressive. Actually, you're fleeing the premises. You're just covering it up real well. Flight, we tend to run away from them. Abandon the situation. Or fight. We begin to get the energy up and we look at the other person and we say, I don't know what's going on here. I'm not sure what's happening, but I know this. You're keeping me from getting what I want. And so we go to war. The problem is that whenever we adopt one of these strategies, the problems stay there. If you take flight and you deny it exists, it just keeps on growing. It doesn't go away. If you stomp out of the room, all that's going to happen is the same circumstances are going to come up later and you're going to have to stomp out again. It's not going to go away because you ran. You have to learn to figure out how to deal with this thing. If you do the fight side of it, all you do if you fight is you simply expend valuable resources. Money, time, emotional energy, and your credibility with people. All you're going to do is just waste a lot of resources. Fighting redirects our focus away from what causes the problem onto people who are involved in the problem. And we just go at it with them, and the problem never changes. It just stays there and keeps on generating nasty stuff. So what you have to do, rather than fleeing the premises emotionally, some guys, they develop a pattern of staying away from home because they won't deal with problems at home. They either work or they play golf, have to necessarily be staying away from home if you're playing golf. But I know a fellow who's a very well-known chemist. I worked in the same area he did, internationally known. One of the few men who worked in industry who still published academic articles. The reason was he had problems at home, and he kept a cot at the laboratory. And when he should have been home dealing with his wife and family, he was hiding out in the laboratory doing experiments and getting fame for it. But his problems never went away. The problems remain. What you have to do is you have to learn how to actually deal with problems. Problems in either case, fight or flight, go right on into the future. They will not disappear. There are a lot of different kinds of problems. There are personal problems, there are organizational problems, there are financial problems, marital problems, relational problems, financial problems. They're all different kinds. They all tend to, whenever they show up, get the same native response: fight or flight. And what we have to do is just learn a different pattern for dealing with them. Actually, you have to develop a very different perspective. On your handout is a statement of problem or opportunity. Okay? You have a problem that showed up here. Actually, from a biblical perspective, what has showed up on your doorstep is trouble, and it is causing trouble, and it's not necessarily a pleasant thing. It's okay to pray for it to go away, but what showed up on your doorstep is also an opportunity. And you need to learn to deal with the opportunity. An opportunity, take a look at the definition, is a favorable juncture of circumstances, such as the halt provided an opportunity for rest and refreshment, somebody out hiking. Things just happen to come together, and this is really good. I've got an opportunity here. Or a good chance for advancement or progress. A door opens, we said, boy, I have a tremendous opportunity here. I need to take advantage of it. When problems show up, you have one of two choices in terms of your attitude. You can either take the attitude that what showed up on your doorstep is hopeless swamp. There's little problems I've tried, and I'm just so frustrated. I've done all kinds of things. Nothing has worked. I'm getting to the point I can't even think my way through things anymore. I don't know what's going on. I'm caught in the swamp where all hopes gradually die. Okay? Now, this is great for a pity party. If you want to throw a pity party, sort of wallow in self-pity and just really enjoy yourself. That is sort of enjoyable, actually. Then this is a great position to take. You can wallow in the swamp. However, the problem will not go away. The other attitude is to say, according to the Bible, trouble is the forerunner of growth. What showed up on my doorstep is a new front moving through my life. And these are just the front edge of change for me. I'm getting ready to start growing in a new way. But I guarantee you this. If you say that, you have to will yourself to say it. You'll not say it because all of a sudden your heart springs up and you just feel so joyful over all these things that have happened. And you say, I just can't believe it. I'm getting ready to grow. You have to turn your heart and your mind from the swamp to the opportunity. But if you'll do it, a lot of good things can happen. Problems, if what's arrived is an opportunity, then problems become the windows, the doorways into the future. God himself is at work in the middle of the situation to be faithful to you and to grow you. So you can live in the swamp, or you can buck up and start looking for what God is trying to bring new into your life, in the situation. So James says, that verse we read a few moments ago, consider it pure joy, brothers, whenever you face various kinds of trials. And I'm not there yet. I'm working on it. But I can turn my heart that direction. And I can begin to see opportunity. Trouble is God's opportunity for me to grow. You have trouble in your family, extended family, in-laws, or your aunt doesn't like the way you comb your mustache. That's okay. There are going to be some things I'll learn out of this situation here. You're going to work, and not only are you don't have a job, there's not even a company anymore. All your investments for the future are gone. Well, this is either the swamp where all my hope dies, and I live now here, a swamp man, swamp thing, or God is getting ready to do something brand new I never thought of. It's a choice of perspective. You choose how you see this. What I'd like to do is take a break from the tape and have you work with this for just a moment. We'll go ahead and close out the tape after I give you an assignment. The assignment is this. Take a problem that you're facing or have faced recently and ask yourself, what kind of opportunities may this be opening up for you? What kind of growth may God be wanting to do? I'd just like you to list, if you could, 2 or 3 things. We're not going to spend an extended time on it, but we'll stop the tape now, and would you please do the project?